you think, Tank, is going to be hungrier in this spot? Can the Jets go on the road as road favorites and win in one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL?
I think both teams are going to be hungry. It's funny. Like I have like a little thing where I kind of do my due diligence and I call it like box score pimping, where I just go through all the box scores from the prior week and just jot down notes. And I have notes for the Seattle Seahawks, like Geno had 215 pass yards, a tub and a pick. Go through Walker having 26 carries, 107 yards. If I scroll to the Thursday night game, the only thing I have for the New York Jets is Strebler, 9 carries, 54 yards. Nothing else was noteworthy. Like it was just ugly. Like I didn't want to jot down any Zach Wilson stats. I mean, Bam Knight. I mean, he was basically non-existent. None of the wide receivers really did anything that was significant, like noteworthy. And so now that Mike White is back in the picture, it's like, okay, now we actually have a team. This should be a competitive game. And so now when you look at it from that standpoint, I don't know if the Jets should be favored on the road. I feel like they're a much better team with Mike White. I think that passing game is much more explosive. And when you have to focus on Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and all these other guys, then that should open up some running lanes against a porous Seattle rush defense, which means Bam Knight should be able to get some totes and get some yardage against them. And on the flip side, Geno has to face a tough defense. Like, I mean, that's one thing we can say, even though the Jets offense has struggled while Mike White has been out, the defense has played well. I mean, they struggled a little bit against Trevor Lawrence and that Jacksonville Jaguars offense on Thursday Night Football. You know, Lawrence had 29 pass yards. He rushed for 50 something
Mm-hmm.
yards. And Etienne had 83 yards rushing, but he had 22 carries. So, I mean, they still hold up pretty well. And so I think when you look at this Jets offense, when you look at this Jets team, it's similar to the effect that Taylor Heineke has when you insert him into the lineup in Washington. It gives them like a little bit of a jolt of energy. But at the same time, I guess we can say that jolt of energy with Heineke, like it lasts for a little bit and just kind of fades away. I think it may stay there with Mike White just because he's a better player and the team has that identity that, hey, we can go out and win significant games with this guy. Whereas, like, if Zach Wilson's in there, they're like, man, damn, like, there's no way we can get by this team. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, it should be a competitive game. I really don't know who wins. I think that we should possibly go over that 42 and a half. I know Jared likes to look at those key numbers. I think the Seattle Seahawks, even though they've struggled a little bit on offense, they have DK. I'm not sure if Tyler Lockett's going to be back. Maybe they score enough points to kind of push this because I feel like the New York Jets shouldn't have any issues scoring on Seattle. So maybe we go over, but more than anything else, this is kind of like a stay away and watch two competitive teams try to fight for their playoff lives.
Yeah, this game is really going to be interesting. Jets defense obviously is a huge story, and the fact that Mike White is back. But on the road, Jared, the Jets are only giving up 18 points per game this season, which is third in the
Wow.
NFL. Do you think they can shut down a guy like Geno Smith and their offense that's been cooking? Because Seattle's defense has really been letting them down a lot the last couple weeks.
I think the Jets defense is capable of shutting down any offense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly do. However, what we saw last week from Jacksonville was kind of a blueprint to how to at least have some success down to down against the Jets. And what I noticed when I watched that game was very quick rhythm passing in the flats away from those star corners. So running the receivers deep, tight ends, running backs in the flats. It was Trevor Lawrence's second lowest ADOT of the season. He averaged about 4.5 yards average depth of target. And again, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson pushed the ball down the field. Kirk, Jones, Ingram, they didn't do that at all against the Jets. It was all dink and dunk. And I think that's not easy to do because you have to be consistent down to down. You can't make the mistake. You can't hold. You can't have a penalty because then you get behind the sticks and then you can't throw a 5-yard out because you're at 3rd and 10. But I do think what Doug Peterson did was at least give teams a blueprint for how to have some down-to-down success against the Jets. Here's the only issue. Jacksonville is playing much better offensively, I think, right now than Seattle is. Geno Smith's numbers, and I've been his biggest fan all year. I love what this dude has done. It's been a fantastic story. But weeks 1 through 8, he was a top 5 quarterback EPA plus CPOE. Since week 9, he's at 10th. So it isn't a huge drop-off, but you're seeing a little bit of regression with his numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's committed a lot of turnover-worthy plays, 8 in the last 3 games, precisely, during this 3-game losing streak. The Jets, though, they do something that no one else can do. Very few teams can do. they're a top 10 pressure rate team and a bottom 5 blitz rate team. They get after you. The big uglies, deep, versatile, Lawson, Rankins, Q, Myers, Johnson. I mean, they have bodies that they can throw at you, and they don't have to commit extra guys in the box in order to generate pressure. And this is a Seahawks offensive line that is trending down. Their right tackle, Abraham Lucas, was hurt in the Chiefs game. Stone Forsythe came in, allowed 3 pressures, was called for a penalty. Gabe Jackson and Phil Haynes rotated at right guard. Neither of them were good, allowed a combined 6 pressures. The Jets' defensive line is going to get into this Seattle offensive line in this game. And I think it's going to be tough for Geno to operate as smoothly as he has in weeks prior. On the other side of the ball, the Seahawks don't blitz much defensively. They don't generate a ton of pressure. I don't know how much that's going to matter because the Jets' offensive line is in absolute shambles. They allowed 15 pressures against the Jaguars last Thursday. I know Zach Wilson looked bad, but he had dudes up in his grill all night long. 13 of those 15 pressures came from the right side. Center McGovern, right guard Herbig, right tackle Fant. 3 penalties also on that side. The left side's been holding up okay. So if you want to say that's the side you run to, Tomlinson and Dwayne Brown, really, the veteran, has done a really nice job solidifying the left side of the Jets offensive line. But Mike White hasn't played in a month. His ribs are probably still a little bit banged up. And I just don't trust the Jets offensive line to keep him upright in this game. I think that's why you've seen this total drop. It's interesting. The spread has gone significantly in favor of the Jets. We've seen about a 3-point move, but the total has dropped since Mike White was announced as the starter. And I think that's curious because I would have guessed the total would have gone up. You take Zach Wilson out and put Mike White in. So I'm not very bullish on the over in this game. I think both teams are going to struggle to move it. And I think whichever quarterback makes the fewest amount of mistakes, I think that team's going to win the game. I have no idea who's going to win it, honestly. I pray it's the Jets, but I have very little faith. And the nightmare of Geno Smith ending the Jets season keeps, entering my brain every night. But that's where I'm at with this game. I would lean Seattle as a home dog, and I would probably lean the under too.